The latest updates, what we're going to go through is we're going to go through some common task updates. Schedules have been added to the opportunity stage. They work the same way as the ones that have existed for the project, so we'll go through using that. We've also added the ability to change an end user for your Opera project. Previously, once that was set, it was set except to be changed by an administrator, so I'll show you how to do that. Then we also now have the option to hide the line item detail when you are printing out your quote documents for your alternates, and then also emailing out multiple COM items. You could always email COM items out, but now if you've got a half dozen of them, you can send them all in one email from the system. So without further ado, we'll jump into the common task updates. So as a reminder, all of the company level templates, including your common tasks, are going to be found here under the waffle or building icon here at the top right corner. So on our landing page here, we'll have all of your, your company address as well as your warehouses and your direct colleagues, and then also your scheduled templates are here on the next tab. Keep the just remember that one for the next, because where we'll import our schedules from, like from the opportunity, will come from this tab. But for today, what we're going to take a look at is this tasks tab. And this is going to have all of our common tasks that we've set up at our company level, and we can import any of these to an opportunity or project as needed. So if you've taken a look at this tab before, you'll already see that the layout has been updated. Previously, this was just a grid that you would just double click into an existing task or create a new one. Now it matches the layout that we've updated to the rest of our tasks with both the overview as well as the project and opportunity. So the next thing I want to point out to you here is that we've also added the ability to create subtasks as well as assign these common tasks. So feedback we received from our users is that a lot of times these common tasks, they end up having the same owner no matter what project it's on. So the takeaway for us was that we should add the ability for these tasks to be assigned. So the way that works is the same way that it's going to work for your task once you import it. You just click this avatar icon, and then you can assign out your task to whoever is going to be responsible for it once it is pulled into a project or opportunity. So for this project, create final quote, we just had it assigned to myself. And then we can also create subtasks here. A lot of partners use this as a project management tool in order to kind of keep track of all of the different tasks that ultimately they'll have to complete. And the big thing is, you don't want to have to go into a project and reinvent the wheel every time. You have this list, so you can pull it in, so you don't have to try to remember all the different things that have to get done. You can pull it in and then really use this as your checklist as you're going through things. So for this, we've got a couple of subtasks here. It says ensure all quotes are final, get final approval from the PM. And the way we create those subtasks is just by clicking this icon, the list icon, and that'll create a brand new one here. And let's say that we actually are good with just these two. We can delete the newly created subtask by clicking this delete subtask icon over here on the right-hand side. Similar to the way we were able to assign the common task, we can also assign our common subtasks here. So if we click this, we can assign to myself, or we can assign to someone else if we need to do that as well. So if there aren't any questions on going through the common tasks here, I'm going to click save, and then I'll just kind of close the loop here by importing them into this opportunity. So we'll go over to the tasks tab, and then over here in the top right, we've got the import tasks button. Click that, and then I'll pull in the task that we were just working on. So it's this create final quote one. I'll double click on it. It'll pull it in. Since it's assigned to me, it's going to show up under my open tasks. So you can see that I'm following it. The assignment remains the same as it is on the common task, and the subtask pull in as well. So would definitely recommend getting those set up. If you don't have them set up already, it's a way to really kind of take advantage of those templates there, so you can save a lot of time versus creating these for each opportunity or project. So one of the biggest new pieces of functionality with this latest release is that we added schedules to our opportunities. Before, this functionality was really only available once an opportunity was converted to the project, but we found that partners needed to provide Gantt charts or provide a schedule during the opportunity phase, like if they're working with the GC or something like that. So we added all of the same functionality that was available for your projects here for an opportunity. So this is what you'll start with once you create an opportunity. And it's pretty blank right now. All we have is just the opportunity level task here. So we could create out, our schedule under this just by creating them one by one. But what I would typically recommend doing is clicking this import schedule button. In this way, you can have a starting place for your schedule. So I'm going to pick the finish date here. And by picking this finish date, when we select one of these templates, it's going to back into all of the other schedule items based on this finish date. So whatever we have marked as a finish date in that schedule templates section in the My Company page, that will be used to back into everything else. And then our second option here is the add or override. And we're going to use the override selection here. Really, either one would be fine when we've got a completely blank here. But if you have like a multi-phase project where you're going to import a template several different times so that you can like have phase 1, 2, 3, 4, you'd want to use that add option. So even if you've never set up a schedule template, everyone is going to have a DIRT standard schedule in here. And I think that most partners, because this is still pretty new, are probably just going to have that option. But since I've already gone through and set up a couple more templates in the My Company page, we've got a couple more options here. So I'm just going to pick this training template. We've got a couple of additional sub items that we've created under the standard schedule versus just having I think it's 8 or 9 items that everyone's got in that DIRT standard schedule. So when we click select here, what it's going to do is it's going to import all of those schedule items. We can see that August 3rd date is our project finish date, and then everything else is backed into beforehand, all the way to our start date of June 15th for pre-order entry. So there's really 2 ways to edit your schedule, and I'm not going to really drain everything here as far as the schedule goes because we covered it pretty in depth in the last training session. But the way to edit your schedule item is going to be clicking this edit button over here at the top. So when we click this, we can change around our title, we can change around the dates, or if this needs to be set as a milestone, like if this is going to be, if this is going to be one of our on-site finish or install dates, we can set that right here. And we can save it. And then we can also add a description or anything else. For a lot of partners, this schedule template is going to be pretty close to what they want to use, but it's going to be something that they're going to need to tweak because when they pull it in, there may be some dates that end up falling on a weekend or your on-site date is on the standard, it's 2 weeks before, or it's 4 weeks before your finish date. But in this case, maybe it just needs to be 3 weeks away or something like that. So you can come down here to the Gantt chart and you can adjust your dates really easily just by dragging and dropping. So I'm going to find our on-site date, and we'll say it's here on July 4th, but we know that's a holiday. So we're actually just going to move it to the Friday here. So easy enough. You can, of course, double-click these things to have the new edit page pop up, and then you can edit your schedule item that way as well. You can also double click over here on the left for the Gantt chart to also access this if you want to change the dates using these date selector fields. So. But as I said, I didn't want to really drain the entire functionality here for schedule items. And I was going to go ahead and kind of keep going through our updates here unless there are specific questions about it. So you can import it. Oh, we're also going to convert to a project. Take it back. We're going to go through one more thing. So we've created our schedule here. And then what we can do is we can use the same schedule once we get to our project, of course. So by clicking this convert to project, we're going to mark our project as 1. We're going to say what the primary success factor is, and then we're going to convert to project. So before we had the option to use a template or to have no schedule, we've now got a third option here to use the existing schedule. So a couple of notes here real quick. Use existing schedule is going to be exactly what you think it is. You don't have to do anything else. All it's going to do is we're just going to have that same schedule available. But if for some reason you wanted to override your existing schedule and use a template just to refresh it, you can have that option too. It's going to provide you that warning that your template is going to override any of your existing items. So only use that if you really intend on deleting the items you've already created. And the same thing is true for no schedule. So if you decided that, you're going to do your schedule through something else for your project, no problem. You can do that here, and this is just going to get rid of them. But I think for, the vast majority of the time, you're probably going to want to use the use existing schedule or use template if you just haven't created a schedule yet for your opportunity. So we'll do that. We'll click through. I'm just going to click through the rest of these pages. And once we get through step 5, what we're going to see is all of these schedule items here that we created at the opportunity stage are now, of course, available for our project. So the next thing here is that we are going to now be able to change the end user for our opportunity or for our project. So where we can do that is under the project information page. Down here at the bottom left, there's a section for the end user. And previously, you could always change the address here to the CRM address or the job site or another address. But now, you can also update it from the current customer. Occasionally, people have misentered the customer or it's needed to change for whatever reason. Previously, you just needed to do that by an administrator, but now you can do that if the situation ever comes up. So we're going to get this warning here. It says all orders associated with this project will be updated to this end user address selected. The reason it's providing that warning is because the order page is also pulling from this address. So just want to make sure that you always got the correct address in there for your orders. So when we click this, we can switch it over to any of our existing projects. We'll say that instead of the Rockies, this was actually supposed to be Coors, but double click it, it'll pull in that and it'll pull in the new address. And we are all set to go ahead and save our project with that new end user. Easy enough, and that works the same way for our opportunities as well. So if we ever need to change over our opportunities from the customer, you'll find under the opportunity info, this part is new here, the end user information. Before it used to just have the architect and GC, but you can click this update button and then pull in the customer that you need from there. So the next thing we've got here is to create a quote document with summary alternates. So I'm going to go into the project that we were just taking a look at, that Rockies Suite 100 and 110, because I know we've got some alternates set up under the quote here. And we've added a new slider. We've added a new Boolean slider here. So we've always had this quote alternates, but now we've got this quote line item detail to yes or to no. So by having it yes, we'll have all of our line items under the alternate, but if we flag it to no, then we're going to have just the summary, just this, the subtotal, tax, and alternate total. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a quote with the line item detail, and then I'm going to flag that to no and create one without the line item detail so you can see both. So right here, this is our summary alternate. So you can see that this is rather the full version because this has got the millwork line here showing the breakout. And then for the other one, get it to open. For the other one, it's just going to have the summary portion. So you can see that millwork line item, and if there were other line items below it, are now no longer visible. Easy enough, right? So next we've got submittals, transmittals, and RFIs. For those of you on the phone here, do you use are you required to provide submittals or transmittals to your general contractors?
Right now, I don't know. Vicky is, oh, she left. Cool. So I am going to say, explain further as far as what do you mean submittals? Like, do we have to present documentation, etc.? Sorry.
Right.
Yes, we do. We do.
Okay. For a lot of GCs, they'll require submittal for something like shop drawings.
Oh, yes. Yes, we do all of that.
Yeah, so you can use the submittal function within KPMIC in order to track that stuff. So for this one, we've got the wood door sample finish for this one. And what you can do is you can say what kind of submittal type, whether it's shop drawings or whether it's samples, and put it in here. And then you can attach any of your related documents. So if it's shop drawings, you can include those related documents in here. And then you can actually send your email to your general contractor directly through here. So we want them to review it so that ultimately these can be used. And then once they get back to us, either they might come back to us and say, such and such revision needs to be made. And then we'll make a copy of this. We'll create the revision number 2. We'll include the response in here from their email. And then once we are all good with it, we can use this close submittal button so that we know everything is good to go. So once we click this, the status here is going to go from open over to closed. So submittal 2 is now closed, and this is really helpful. I think one of the bigger values that partners ultimately get from this application is that this becomes their single source for information on a project. So having all of this stuff in here, is really helpful compared to trying to, go through your email or trying to figure out who sent it to you, whatever the case may be. You can have it all stored right in here. So the next thing for a transmittal, this is more the way it's been explained to me as far as differentiating between transmittals and submittals. Submittals usually require some type of review versus transmittals are really just for, providing that information over. So they're sending over shop drawings ultimately for approval, and they sent the cover via attached. I'm just looking at these pieces right here. And you can go ahead and assign it to everyone you need to within here. And then also you can send your email directly from the application as well. There's also the ability to create a PDF from it. Your email will have that attached so that it'll have all this information just nicely collected for your counterpart that you're sending this to. So, and then RFIs are the other piece that I wanted to cover from a project management perspective on this today as well. So RFIs, it's a request for information. I'm going to revert the status of this one just so we can look at the writable version. So for this one, we needed additional information from the from one of our architects, let's say. So we had insufficient information, and we needed to get a confirmation on whether the door needs to be locking or not locking. So depending on whether or not it is, it may be an increased cost, maybe a decrease in cost. We don't expect it to have any time impact. And our action requested here is the clarification. And then once we get our response, it's locking, no cost impact, and no time impact, of course. So as I mentioned, a lot of this is really just using it as an organizational tool. It kind of gives you that history where you're able to go through the project. So if there was a cost impact, you'd be able to kind of have it see the origins of it here. You can create a potential cost impact from an RFI. So this can be one of the starting places if ultimately if this needs to turn into a change order, or if this needs to turn into to something that is ultimately absorbed by the partner. Whatever case that may be, you can turn your RFI into that, and it'll all kind of track it the whole way, which is, I think, pretty handy.
So they have to be, whenever you send that transmittal, they have to be a part of the project team to be able to select an email?
Correct. They would just need to be added onto the project team. You're right.
Okay. Just want to double check.
Yep. Good question. All right. So the next thing I wanted to go through was using some of those field functions from the point of view of an installer. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you, I'm going to share my screen with with what will look like the what we've got as a phone preview. So right now I'm logged in as an install user. The username here for myself is just John Install. So I'm only assigned to this one project. Once I log in, I'll be able to view any other projects that I'm assigned to. I'll also be able to view any tasks that I'm assigned to, as well as the schedules. So I'm going to click into this project called Opportunity 1. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with a status report for it. So we can see we've got all the different modules, and this is, of course, specific to an install team user. So you can see what we need to submit, and then we can also have access to things such as delivery tickets as well. But for right now, what we're going to take a look at is submitting a status report as an install user. So we're going to go into this, and we can create a status report. I've already created one here in the past that we can use, just so we're not just filling information the whole time. So I'm going to click into this one, and we'll start with the report. This date will always auto-populate, and then the DP contact, you can fill that out. It's a free entry here. Same with the install contact and supervisor. You'll note that means that they do not necessarily have to be on the project team in order to fill out their info here. And then the description of what was occurring when you're submitting this status report. So once, I'm going to skip over this assign to piece here. What you can do is you can send your email after all the activities have been added. And then this activities section here will let an install user fill out all the specifics of what they're working on how many hours, and how many people are completing the work. So clicking into one here, we've got demo. We'll say this was happening on Tuesday morning. And then we have got this track install hours slider flagged yes. And what that is going to allow all of this hours down here to be selected. So you can use this slider just with your finger on a mobile device and move along the hours from left to right here for your supervisor, your tech, or your laborer as well. The last thing here, and I think this is a pretty neat function, is that you can add an image. So if you're using this on your phone or on a tablet, when you click this, it's going to prompt you here, and when you click browse, on your phone, it'll give you the option to say either take photo or use photo from library. So if you're on the job site and, say something, a demolition ended up taking a lot longer than expected, you can take a photo and say, well, here's the reason why. So we'll click save on activity. And once this stuff is all set, this number of workers is going to aggregate from all of your activities. And once this is all set, you can click send email, or you can just save it. So I think it's always helpful to send the email after a status report has been completed. The reason for that is it's going to have a link back to the project. So if you're if you're the PM working on it and you're not on site, you don't necessarily know when this thing is going to come in or be completed for the day. When they click send email, you'll be able to just click that link and view what they've been working on right there. The other thing that's pretty handy about this, just in general from the mobile functionality, is that because this is a cloud-based app, as people are making updates out in the field, that's going to be available to you immediately wherever you're at, as long as you have an internet connection. If you log onto it, you'll be able to see whatever pictures or status reports they're submitting. The next thing we've got here is potential cost impacts. So I mentioned a PCI in reference to an RFI earlier. So a potential cost impact, a common one that we like to use for training is a stair carry. So let's say the freight elevator wasn't large enough or wasn't rated high enough for the capacity. Having to do a stair carry might be an example of potential cost impact. We don't necessarily know immediately who's ultimately going to bear the responsibility of the cost, whether that's something that the client had said, the freight elevator was going to be big enough, or if that was something that the partner was supposed to have taken care of, or if that's the install team, whatever the case may be. We know that it's going to be some more hours in order to get this done. We just don't know who's going to cover the cost yet. So we started out as a PCI. So we have the title, the status is going to be open, of course. We can add a description as needed. And then we can add all of our PCI details. So we can add images, or under those details, if we know anything more about it, we can put it in there. So if it's just additional labor, we can estimate the number of hours we think it's going to take, as well as the cost. You also do not have to include this information if you don't have it. If you just know that there's going to be a stair carry, it's going to be some impact to the cost, and you just want to track it, you can do that, and you can include, again, a picture, and you can include, it's like, all right, this isn't going to fit in the elevator, so we're going to have to carry it up the stairs. So click Save here, and for the PCIs, this will show up on your conversations on that mailer each evening. So whenever those are created, it does automatically create a conversation post. And the last mobile function that we're going to go through today is the punch list items. So if you click on this, we can see that we've got a list of punch items here. And I'm going to click on to number 3 here. It says door installed backwards. So for room 102, the door is supposed to be swinging inwards, but it's actually swinging outwards. So the action required is going to be to schedule installers to correct it. The description, we just said see picture, and then we can create images attached for it. Similar, you can take a picture with your phone and upload it right there. And the last thing I want to point out about a punch list item is that you can save and duplicate a punch list item. Some feedback we received from one of our partner users is that when going through these punch list items, a lot of times there are several of the same thing that need to be created as punch lists. So you can do this by clicking save and duplicate punch item. So it says punch item duplicated, photos are not copied from the original. So you'll have to take a new photo of the new one naturally, and we'll say this is for, we'll say that this one is for room 103 instead, and we'll just go ahead and save it. So it's that easy to create an extra punch list item if it's really similar to the one before.